My name is Ethan Clark, and I learned one of the most important lessons about life and pride the day my wife, Vanessa, decided she wanted a divorce. 4 years, we had what seemed like a normal marriage. We shared a house, bills, friends, and routines. On the surface, everything looked perfect to neighbors, coworkers, and family. But beneath that polished exterior, there were cracks, small at first, almost invisible, growing quietly over time. I worked hard to provide, to make our lives comfortable, and I always tried to support Vanessa's ambitions. But I also noticed subtle shifts, the late-night calls, the whispered texts, and the way she smiled at her coworkers a little too long. I didn't pry. I believed trust was more important than suspicion. Then came the day she finally confronted me. It was a Friday evening. I had just finished setting the table for dinner, thinking it would be a quiet night, when she walked into the dining room with a serious expression and said, "Ethan, I want a divorce." The words hit me like a sudden winter storm, sharp, cold, and unexpected. I froze for a moment, unsure whether to react with anger, sadness, or disbelief. Before I could speak, her coworker, David, who had accompanied her that evening, gave a small, smug smirk. It was the kind of smirk that said, "I've been waiting for this moment," and it stung worse than the words themselves. For a second, I could feel the entire room shrink around me. The embarrassment, the humiliation, the betrayal, it all came rushing in. Then, something unexpected happened. I took a deep breath, and instead of responding with hurt or pleading, I said quietly, almost effortlessly, "Fine. She's all yours." The room went silent. Vanessa blinked, caught off guard. David's smirk faltered for just a moment. I continued calmly, "I won't stop you. If you truly believe this is where your happiness lies, then by all means, take it. I'll step aside." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I didn't try to convince her to stay. Instead, I simply smiled, a small, serene smile that carried more confidence than any argument could. That single moment changed the atmosphere entirely. The power had shifted, not to anger, not to smirks, but to calm control. In the weeks that followed, I focused entirely on myself. I moved into a smaller apartment, invested more energy into my career, and reconnected with friends I had neglected. I spent time traveling, learning new skills, and rediscovering hobbies that had been buried under years of routine and compromise. Every step I took reminded me that my value wasn't determined by someone else's choices or a moment of betrayal. Meanwhile, Vanessa and David seemed eager to show off their new freedom to mutual acquaintances, flaunting dates, dinner photos, and social media updates. But what they didn't understand was that appearances mean nothing when the foundation is weak. I watched quietly as their excitement slowly faded. David grew frustrated with her temper, and Vanessa realized that leaving a partnership built on years of respect for the sake of a flirtation didn't solve the underlying issues in her life. Months later, I launched a new business venture I had been planning for years but had postponed due to marital responsibilities. Within 6 months, it was thriving. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was simply following my own path, building my future without interference. When news of my success reached mutual friends, they were surprised. "Ethan, you've done so well on your own," they said. I smiled and nodded, letting my calm confidence speak louder than any words could. Vanessa reached out once, subtly trying to reconnect. I listened politely, offered a few kind but firm words, and moved on. She realized then that I had truly stepped into my own life, one she could no longer control or influence. The best part of it all was how naturally everything unfolded. I never plotted revenge. I never gossiped or tried to embarrass them. Instead, I simply chose to live well, and that choice became the ultimate form of poetic justice. David's smirk had lost all meaning because I no longer cared about his approval, and Vanessa's realization that leaving me didn't elevate her life became an unspoken truth. I found fulfillment not in proving them wrong directly, but in proving myself right, that my happiness, growth, and self-respect were mine to claim. Now, when I think back to that day, I smile. She said she wanted a divorce, and David smirked, thinking he had the upper hand. But by staying calm, stepping aside, and focusing on myself, I turned what could have been humiliation into liberation. And now, years later, I can honestly say that moment was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me that real strength comes from patience, self-respect, and the quiet satisfaction of letting life prove itself in your favor.